STEM fans, are you ready? Let's hear it for the world-class NASA STEM Stars team. From NASA centers across the country, we present Armstrong Flight Research Center Director, David McBride. Hello, my name is David Alexander, connecting to you from the Armstrong Flight Research Center. And welcome to the second exciting season of NASA STEM Stars, where students connect firsthand with scientists, engineers, and innovators to learn more about their missions, their career paths, and opportunities. In last season, we streamed episodes in English and select programs in Espanol. We had the unique opportunity to hear and interact with NASA astronauts, scientists from the James Webb Telescope, and even heard from aerospace engineers who developed satellites smaller than a bread box called CubeSats. There's no limit to NASA careers. We also heard from graphic artists, photographers, and managers who lead various teams at the agency. And guess what? Today's mission is no different. Joining us for today's sensational kickoff is David McBride, Center Director for the Armstrong Flight Research Center, one of NASA's 10 premier centers. Mr. McBride will actually talk to us, and he will actually talk to us a little bit more about his career paths and what eventually led to his amazing career at the agency. Mr. McBride is going to share a little bit about his background, his career experiences, and the amazing work that he does for NASA. So as you're listening to him share his unique story, we really want for you to come up with some questions to ask him. So about half of our time will be devoted to answering your questions. So please enter those questions in the chat throughout the conversation today, and we'll try and answer them all before we wrap up for the day. So without further ado, Mr. McBride, can you please tell us just a little bit more about yourself?
Hey, thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be with you here today and an honor to be able to speak to y'all. A little bit about myself. I started out at NASA in 1982 as an intern, as a co-op student. So I've been here for quite a while, almost 40 years. So it's been quite a journey. I do have a lot of interest outside of work, though, in sports, things like skiing, scuba diving, hiking. I like to get out on the road on my bikes, buildings.
Oh, okay, very good. Now, the thing is,
Go ahead.
Oh no, the thing is I was just going to say that it's just important to note that it's important for us to highlight all of your interests and things like that, because a lot of times people think NASA individuals are just totally focused on our work, but that's necessarily not the case.
No, the beauty of NASA is you have time to do things on your own. As a researcher and working as a research center, we offer plenty of time for our people to get out, see the world, and improve themselves as well.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of people, they really want to know a little bit more about what it actually takes to get to NASA. Now, while this is very different for everyone, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey to NASA? I know you mentioned a little bit that you were a co-op.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was a co-op from the University of New Mexico. So I grew up in a small mining town in western New Mexico, and that's a picture of me in 1982 when I first got out here. A little bit more hair. I grew up in a very average, small little town, average high school, average university, but finding a place here at NASA was very special. There's always, I got here in 1982 and thought I'd be here for probably one semester and off to do something else. But the work, the people, the excitement, the things we do, the interesting things that are available here at NASA always kept me interested. And so I never planned on being center director or being in charge, but it's been quite a journey. One bit of advice for anybody looking for a job like this is just be ready. Be ready for any assignment. Be flexible. Be adaptable. Continue to learn your entire life, your entire career.
Yeah, absolutely. And education is definitely the key to success, but it's our experiences which open a whole plethora of opportunities for
Mm.
individuals. Um, as a child, when you were growing up, what were some of your aspirations? I mean, did you always dream of working at NASA?
Well, certainly as a child growing up in the 60s, I was born in 1959, so I got to see, the Apollo program grow up, and as a child, watch Neil Armstrong step out on the moon. That certainly was an inspiration. But also, then at that age, I didn't have any idea I'd work for NASA. Uh, but looking at things like the X-15 movie, I remember seeing that at the West Theater in Grants, New Mexico. It was a movie about the X-15 program, which was NASA's premier hypersonic flight test program that was conducted in the late 50s through the end of the 60s. And so it was
Mhm.
exciting to see that kind of activity and got me interested in aircraft. My engineering background is electrical engineering, so it's a skill set and education that doesn't just focus on aerospace or aircraft, but it works on everything. So when I first got to NASA, worked on computers and helping make the first do test on the first digital fly-by-wire aircraft in the world. And so it's been a great progression to see how electronics and avionics has taken a big step forward in aircraft and aircraft flight.
Absolutely. So we're talking about from your aspirations to essentially a student intern to becoming NASA Armstrong Center's director, which is very impressive. So it basically goes to show that you had small beginnings and you eventually worked very hard to get to where you are today. But the thing is we have a lot of young students who are interacting with us here online on YouTube. We were wondering, can you tell us a little bit more about what a center director does?
Well, my job as center director is one, to communicate with our stakeholders in Congress, in the White House, the people who actually support the work we do and fund the work we do, and communicate the need for the technology, and also let them know the progress we are making. The other side of it is working with the center and helping coordinate and being a conductor, if you will, of an orchestra, making sure all the parts of the center um, are working in harmony to get our work done. And so it's not just pilots or engineers who make the technology work. It takes the entire center: pilots, engineers, mechanics, technicians, secretaries, people in procurement, lawyers, people who clean the place. So it does take an entire village, if you will, to make the technology possible, and it takes a team. And so part of being a center director is making sure the team is working in harmony, getting the support they need across organizations, if necessary, bringing in support from other centers or other agencies or other parts of the country or other parts of the world.
Very good, very good. I know NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, he said in an interview, he said, that's who NASA is. It's the best and the brightest America has. What is your take? What is your feeling on what NASA is?
We certainly do have some best and brightest people in the world working for us, but my view is it takes teams to make things work. And so, I'd rather have a good average student who can work together as a team, who can help the team pull things together. I got to know Neil Armstrong before he passed away. And if you look over my right shoulder, there's a painting of him as a research test pilot here at the center, and that's where he got his start at NASA and flying flight test and flight research for NASA. But he didn't see the big deal in his life as being the first man on the moon, because he saw himself as being part of a 400,000 person team that got humans to the moon, and he was just lucky to be that first one. But through the little steps he did here, through the big steps he did on the moon, he felt, and I feel, that the work we do, the success we have, is in bringing the entire team together to achieve those achievements.
Absolutely. It's all about taking those small steps to giant leaps. We have a question from a student that just came in from the chat. Student wants to know, what is the most complicated aircraft that you've ever worked on?
Hmm. Probably the most complicated aircraft I've worked on and we have flying right now is the SOFIA, which is the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy. It's a 747 with a 2.7 meter uh, telescope that opens up to the atmosphere. The telescope weighs about 20 tons. So it is a matter of coordinating a flight and making sure that aircraft and the telescope is pointing at the right object in the sky. At the sky, and if you'll imagine pointing at a star like the little yellow star above my head here, while the aircraft is flying at about 650 miles an hour, and the Earth is rotating and the stars are rotating, and you got to keep the telescope locked on uh, that object in the sky for maybe 3 hours at a time. And so it's a great engineering, mathematical, navigational, and astrophysics and flight project all brought together to make sure that we can capture that infrared, astrophysics, so we can have a better understanding of the cosmos and how stars are formed, how galaxies evolve, and it's all done in flight. So it's incredibly complicated piece of architecture that brings it all together. Plus, it brings together a complicated international team. So it's coordinating teams from the United States and Germany, and we fly here. We fly in the southern hemisphere. The aircraft's in Germany right now, preparing to do science flights over Europe in February and March of this year. So it's a great, complicated international navigational, engineering, astrophysics, optics, piloting, logistics. It's a complicated in that sense, but it's a great.
Very true.
That's one example of that's happening right now.
Very impressive. And we all know that the first A in NASA stands for aeronautics. And for the audience who doesn't know or understand aeronautics, basically the science of travel through the air. It's as much as about people flying on airplanes and arriving at their destination safely as it is about astronauts that are flying in space. So, my question for you is what is the Armstrong Flight Research Center's role at NASA when it comes to aeronautics?
Our role is validating technology, but validating new concepts, like I mentioned, the digital fly-by-wire. I like to remind people that although NASA gets seen as a space agency, and some of the big visible things we do are flying astronauts in space and flying satellites around the Earth and flying probes to other planets, for the most of the public, whether the United States or worldwide, you are more likely to be involved in a whether you're flying to visit your grandmother or whether you're flying high performance aircraft in defense of the nation or next generation electric aircraft, you're more likely to be involved and touch and fly one of those vehicles personally than you'll have an opportunity to travel to space. So we have a huge impact. There's not a single airplane in the world that does not have technology that was not validated here at the Armstrong Flight Research Center and by NASA and its predecessor, the NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. So we've been at this for 106 years doing this type of research. We got our start in 1914 and have been improving aircraft and air transportation ever since. And that's why uh, American aircraft are what they are and why it's so easy for you to travel around the world today.
And you're absolutely right. Today's entire aviation industry relies on technology rooted in NASA research inside cockpits, cabins, and jet engines, even on top of many of the traffic control towers. I know you touched a little bit and spoke a little bit more about Sophia, but what other current missions are being implemented at the Armstrong Flight Research Center?
Well, on the science side, Sophia is a big one. That's the one on the bottom of the picture there with the door open. You can see the big telescope inside. The Earth science aircraft, like the one above it, DC-8, is an old aircraft. It's used to study the Earth and the health of the environment, health of the, monitoring things like climate change, weather, cryosphere, how the ice in the polar ice caps is evolving. The X-57 in the top right hand picture there is an electric aircraft that is, again, that's like a flying Tesla. It'll take us to the next generation of efficient transport. And so in the future, you'll be flying aircraft like that around the community and eventually around the country, and using probably maybe 20% of the fuel, of the energy it takes you right now to travel around in a conventional aircraft or a jet. And then the other one we're flying in the picture is the X-59, which is a new supersonic aircraft that'll revive the supersonic transportation industry to allow you to fly supersonic without an annoying supersonic boom that is a reason supersonic aircraft currently don't fly passengers around the country or around the world right now. And so it'll be a more efficient aircraft than the old Concorde that was retired about 20 years ago, and open up a new era of efficient supersonic high-speed travel.
Absolutely. When do you think we'll actually see the likes of the X-57 or even the X-59 aircraft fly experimentally? That is.
Well, the X-57, if we wouldn't, I mean, we've been impacted by the COVID pandemic this year, so things are a little bit slowed down. We should be ready to fly the X-57 later this year in 2021. The X-59 is being built right now by our partner Lockheed Martin in Palmdale, California. It'll complete manufacturing late in the summer, and then we'll start ground testing through the next winter. And so probably by spring of 2022, we'll be ready for the first flight of that. And once we fly it and clear the envelope, we'll be coming to communities around the country to perform sonic boom flights over the communities to make sure that the sonic boom is acceptable. And it's a unique program in the sense that the ultimate test is not of the aircraft, it's of people. We're testing people on the ground, you in your communities, to see if that sonic boom is acceptable to you as citizens of the country. And if it's okay, then it'll open up the possibility for the design of the next generation of supersonic transport aircraft.
hmm And what is work life like at NASA? And along those lines, I had a question from a student, which basically asks, "What is your leadership style along those lines, and what are some of the ways in which you can help advance equity in STEM?" Um, so I know that was a couple
Well,
of questions in one, but
if I guess if I had to define my leadership style, it's more of a pragmatic nature. It's trying to pull together the resources I can and the team I can to get the job done. Uh, for us, since we're at the validation end of the research and test, it's most important that we actually prove that something works, and actually it's important to prove that things don't work too. So failure in our case is an option. If something isn't, if a design doesn't work or isn't suitable, that's an okay result. And knowing that something doesn't work is as acceptable as something not working at all or having a failure. So it's success to prove that something doesn't work. So our objective is to get that moving. My leadership style is to enable the teams, give them the support. I believe that our biggest success has come from integrated teams, not just superstar hotshots. And that requires engagement and involvement of everybody. And that goes across gender, race, diversity of all kinds. And I fully support efforts there and efforts across the country to help improve the social justice standing of the country right now.
absolutely. Um, and what about work life at NASA currently? How is that?
Well, today in a pandemic, a lot of work is happening remotely. We probably have about 60% of our workforce, or maybe more than that, 70% of our workforce who's teleworking during the pandemic. Normally, it's everybody's here hands-on with aircraft, um, but we try to have a good work-life balance. In the federal government, we have great benefits with respect to vacation and leave time and holidays. And I want to make sure that we have employees that have a balance and have time to look up and out and see the horizon, enjoy life, and still get the technical mission accomplished here at NASA.
Very well said. Now, students, it's definitely time to hear from you. Hopefully, you've been typing your questions in the chat. And if you haven't, then now is the time. So let's take a look and see what questions that we have been fielding from the internet here. So I have a question here. Uh, Student was basically wondering, can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the best lessons that you've learned or mistakes that you've had, either from yourself or peers, and how that affected you?
If we're talking about life lessons or career lessons, one of the best lessons is to one can always be a learner. Continue to learn for your entire career. You're not done learning when you get out of college or high school. You can continue to learn through your entire career, and also, if you're a good learner, be willing to change your mind. If things don't work out like you thought, new evidence comes in. Having a good engineering or scientific mind, it requires that you evaluate new options, new data, and change the path of what you're doing, or change the direction of the technology you're working on. So be adaptable and changeable. And if you want to have I've had friends here at NASA who pick a technical topic and a technical subject and have been working on it for the entire time I've been here, 40 years, and they're happy. But if you want to do something different, always be looking for um, the ability to train your replacement and be willing to take risk and take assignments that are difficult. And you'll be amazed if you take those difficult assignments, take that responsibility, that you'll succeed if you really put your mind to it.
Absolutely. And NASA impacts individuals globally. Have a student here was wondering any advice for international students in terms of trying to get to NASA. And in addition to that, are there any projects that they can probably engage in with, which are like remote projects for themselves to train and gain experience?
One thing is to have perseverance if you're an international student and you want to work at NASA. And I have one great success story of a student who introduced herself at a HENAC conference 2 or 3 years ago to me. Um, and what I did was just provide her encouragement to not give up, to pursue her dreams, to pursue her career. She was a student at UTEP in El Paso, Texas, and was working in antenna design. And I encouraged her to continue to that design, or continue to pursue that. And right now she's doing antenna design work at the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena. So designing antennas for next generation of satellites and spacecraft. So uh, have some perseverance, and don't give up.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. We have a couple questions came in
Or
from.
she was from India, so
Oh,
she was a foreign student who was here in the United States and wanted to work. Her lifelong passion was to work for NASA. So anyway, it can work out. Okay, go to your
absolutely.
next one.
Thank you so much for that advice for our international students out there. Students here has a question. Basically says, my daughter wants to know, uh, when did you know that you wanted to become an engineer? At what point in your life?
I think it was from my childhood. Not that I wanted to know, or I wanted to be an engineer because I knew what an engineer was, but I was always one of those uh, children who took things apart, put them together, tried to figure out how things work, learned how to build things from my father. And so, give your children, if you're asking the question for your child, give your children space to explore, give them permission to take things apart and try to figure out how they work. Give them access to tools so they can make and sometimes break things. That's the way you learn, by just trying.
Nothing like getting sound advice from NASA's center director. This is just totally amazing. Thanks for your engagement. But what's next for NASA? What's next for the horizon?
We've got a bright future. We've got a new administration coming on board next Wednesday, and that'll we'll continue working manned space flight. You saw this past year we've got SpaceX flying astronauts to the International Space Station, and Boeing will soon follow with that. The Artemis program this weekend is scheduled to have their heavy, big run of their their first stage booster at the Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. So that path with the Artemis program on its journey to the moon is ongoing, and I'm very confident it'll continue through the next generation. The James Webb Space Telescope will be launched sometime in the next year, and that'll open up a whole new view into the faraway horizon, along looking almost to the beginning of the Big Bang, the beginning of the of our universe. So it'll give us insight into how the cosmos was formed. We'll have a new Mars rover landing on Mars here. When is it? Just a couple months, and so it'll have some more chemistry capabilities, and the first flying vehicle, a little helicopter on the Mars rover to be able to scout out and see more of the planet. So planetary Sophia, like I said, is continue to fly astrophysics missions through in the atmosphere here in California and the southern hemisphere in Europe. The Hubble Space Telescope continues to work. So we're looking at that. Earth science, I expect, is going to be a big focus in the next administration, and the changes to our climate need to be addressed. And the first step is to understand the climate, try to figure out the mechanisms, the complex mechanisms of our climate process. And then I described in aeronautics some of the continued work we're doing. Quiet supersonic flight, electrifying flight for the next generation, building, designing, and helping to develop the next super efficient subsonic transport. If you'll think of a replacement for the current Boeing and 737 and Airbus A320 series, which is the bulk of air transportation around the world. So more efficient air transportation, electrified flight, quiet supersonic, seeing more of the cosmos with James Webb, getting to the moon and eventually onto Mars. NASA has there's a lot of work to do, and we need the next generation to step up. Yeah, I'm a little gray-haired, and I won't be here all that long. We need the next generation to come and help take over and help continue to make progress with all these activities.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're definitely changing the world one day at a time. Uh, for our audience, looks like we're just about out of time for today. But before we go, we have a challenge for you. So we're challenging you to build your own X-plane glider. So you will design and build a glider out of household items to demonstrate how an airplane flies. So you can get the opportunity to see a link there in the chat for the activity, and that's going to take you to the Next Gen STEM website so you can begin completing your aircraft. So once you finish your design, we like to see them, and we will hope for you to share your work with us on this activity at hashtag NextGenSTEM. Now, two more things before we wrap up. I want to say thank you to Mr. McBride for coming on our show today. We really appreciate you kicking off this season. It was great speaking with you and learning more about your amazing leadership and the great things happening at the NASA Armstrong Flight Research Center. Lastly, join us for our next STEM Stars on January 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we are going to learn more about some of NASA's greatest historical moments from Dr. Christian Gelzer. He's a chief historian at Armstrong. So thank you all for attending. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you all next time. Take care and have a beautiful day. Thank you so much, and take care.